in the first.
Ask Norbert, show him which ones they are.
Okay. Yeah. The witnesses are over here.
Can I put this down until she leaves?
Yeah.
Kelsey.
Okay, let me see. I'm pretty sure it's this one right here. Yeah, let me get it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We're going to start in a few minutes and waiting for some of our other colleagues to get here, so bear with us for a second. Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today. This is an ad hoc hearing by the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and before I introduce the conveners of this ad hoc hearing, it comes at a very important time. We're waiting for Leader Pelosi, who will make a statement. Mr. Ellison, Judy, who was one of the originators, if not the originator of the idea to have an ad hoc hearing at this time. Thank you, Mr. Shu. Excellent. And Ms. Yvette Clark, who will be here with us, Judge Chakowski, and Mr. Jared Polis. Those were the people that signed the letter to put this together and invited other members. We have other members that are here as well today, and they will have an opportunity to introduce themselves as we go forward. But today, given everything that's going on with the refugee issue with the children in this country, the machinations that Congress is going through trying to put together a package. We just heard about the latest example from our Republican colleagues as to what their package is here in the House. The Senate has a package. We felt it was kind of important not to be dealing with this subject in a detached way, that Congress and Washington, D.C. get a direct look and a profound listening, I hope, of the young people that are with us here today and their families that are also with us. Also from a panel of experts on addressing this humanitarian crisis. They'll be the second panel. So today's hearing is about to listen to the young people. I think we're missing, as a Congress, missing the point in this whole issue. And the point is that we're talking primarily about children. We're talking primarily about their fleeing violence and fleeing many times for their own safety and lives. And we're missing the point that as a nation, we're in the embodiment of those values that protect the weaker, those values that protect the people fleeing persecution and prosecution unjustly. And today we're going to hear from those young people that did just that. So when people come up with laws and try to deal with the supplemental package, we would hope that they do it in the context of human beings and children. Regrettably, these migrant kids that are coming to this country are being blamed for everything right now, dealing with the border, dealing with immigration reform and why we don't have it, they're to blame for DACA and the reason we need to get rid of it. They're to blame for having more troops on the border. They're to blame for every communicable disease that ever existed on the face of the earth. They're to blame for the divisions that have been racking this nation for 2 decades regarding the issue of immigration and race. And I think that's a lot to put on their little shoulders. It's time that Congress kind of assume the responsibility for this impasse we have in immigration reform, assume the responsibility that these laws are in place to protect people, and quit demonizing and blaming children when sometimes it's important for all of us as leaders to look ourselves in the mirror and come to the conclusion that we're not doing our part as a Congress. And with that, let me welcome the young people and also turn it over to, as I said earlier, Ms. Chu was instrumental in saying we need to have a hearing of this kind where we have real people talk about this issue. And let me turn it over to her for any opening comments. And Ms. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will never forget going to the Texas border station 2 weeks ago and seeing all the children in the detention cells sleeping on the cold, hard floor. That's what drove me to suggest this hearing. And I want to thank you, Congressmember Grijalva, for arranging for the Congressional Progressive Caucus to sponsor this. It's so important to hear firsthand from the children who are testifying here today. We'll hear about what drove them to leave their homes and why they are seeking protection in our country. As a nation, it's up to us to find a responsible and moral solution to address this humanitarian crisis and do what is best for each and every child coming to our border seeking refuge. Our first priority needs to be protecting those with legitimate claims of persecution and preserving the protections our current laws provide. Today, we lift up their stories and remember that we are dealing with real people, young people, who have witnessed unimaginable violence and tragedy. We cannot cover our ears to their cries for help. It's time to push politics aside and put these kids first. The answer can't be a legislative fix that guts existing protections and risks pushing them back into deadly violence. We need an effective response that puts their interests first, and we need it now. I want to thank our very brave witnesses who've come forward to share their personal stories today.
Thank you very much, Representative Chu. I want to acknowledge the members that are here today, and Ms. Lucille Roybal, who is here with us also as well. Barbara Lee is with us as well, and I. In coming in that direction, Mr. Takano, Mr. O'Rourke, Ms. Norton, Ms. Chu has spoken, Ms. Jackson Lee, Ms. Han, Mr. Lowenthal, Ms. Barbara Lee, Mr. Conyers, and Ms. Roybal Allard. All of these individuals have taken time and are here with us today, and we're very appreciative. As the panels talk, we will go by as people arrived. We will turn to them for them to, if they have any questions of the witnesses or any reactions to the testimony. With that, let me welcome you and welcome these three fine, brave, courageous young people that are here with us today. Let me begin with Dulce. Dulce is 15 years old. She's from Guatemala. She lives on Long Island with her two younger sisters, her mom, and stepdad. She grew up for much of her youth in Guatemala without her parents. Her father died when she was just 2, and her mother traveled to the United States when she was young because she could not support her 2 daughters as a single mom in Guatemala. Dulce was almost sexually abused by a man working on her uncle's house. When she was told her mom what happened, she immediately left the U.S. for Guatemala to bring her 2 daughters to safety in the U.S. Dulce also witnessed an attempted murder of a woman who sold food door to door in her street. The woman was shot by a man right outside of Dulce's home. She saw that the woman was badly hurt and fled into her house so that she could not also be harmed. Dulce is now a permanent resident of the United States because of a family court judge in New York declared that it was not in her best interest to be sent to Guatemala and that she could not be reunified with her father under New York state law. Dulce is here to join us today, and let me turn it over to her representative to begin the discussion. Admiro mucho a los tres que están aquí con nosotros. Todos apreciamos que han tomado el tiempo. Tienen mucho valor y lo que y la discusión con nosotros es tan importante. Y una discusión que le da cara a esta tragedia que vemos en la frontera, una discusión que le da emoción a algo que merece emoción, porque la cuestión es de humanos, de personas y de niños que están afectados por la violencia y la falta de recursos en sus países. Huyeron a los Estados Unidos para estar en un lugar que les dé más seguridad y estar muchas veces con sus familias. Por eso aprecio que tomen el tiempo. No es difícil. Todo va a ser una discusión calmada, y por eso, con eso, les brindo las bienvenidas. And Dulce, if you would start, please. You need to push can you push that button on? Yeah, that's the turn.
Has to be green.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Dulce Medina. I am 15 years old, and I am from Guatemala. I am in the 10th grade in Central Isaac High School in Long Island, New York. I live with my mom, stepdad, and two little sisters, Jamie and Jada, who are 5 and 10 years old. I have had a green card since November of last year because a judge in New York said I was a special immigrant juvenile. I am grateful for the chance to speak to you today to tell you my story. I hope that my story can make you see why it's so important to help protect the many children who are running away from harm, like I did, in their home countries of Central America. In 2009, when I was just 10 years old, I fled Guatemala with my sister Jamie to get away from a man that tried to harm me. From what I remember, it was difficult living in Guatemala because I grew up without my mother, who left when I was 5 years old to give us a better life. My father died when I was just 2 years old, and my mom could not support us by herself. I grew up in Guatemala with my aunt and uncle. It was also difficult to live in Guatemala because there was lots of violence. I had to walk 30 minutes to get to school from my aunt's house. On the way to school, I saw people fighting a lot of times. I saw members of gangs on the streets and in school. I was scared to walk to school every day. The worst thing that ever happened to me was before I came to the United States. One day, my cousin and I woke up in the morning and started walking towards school. One of my uncles was building a house next to the house of my aunt, and we had to cross through the construction site to get to school. When we were walking through the house, a worker there asked us to come to help him with something. When we got close to him, he forced us inside the room he was building and closed the door. We asked him what he wanted, and he said nothing, and tried to take our clothes off. We screamed, and we were able to run away from him. I was in shock. We ran outside of the room that we were in and told our aunt and uncle what happened. They didn't believe me. My aunt and uncle asked the man what happened, and the man told them that my cousin and I were lying. I was scared. I called my mom to tell her what happened. She became really upset and fainted because she is diabetic. 2 days after I told her this, she came to Guatemala to protect me from the man. My mom was scared that I would be harmed and decided to bring me quickly to the United States. I thought about going to the police, but it had taken me 2 hours just to walk to the station. Instead of helping me and my cousin, my aunt and uncle punished us. They hit us on the back with a belt and sent us to our room. I don't think the police will have helped me because they are very corrupt in Guatemala. A couple of months ago, before I left Guatemala, I saw a woman named Sonia who sold food door to door in the neighborhood, got shot in the chest by an armed man. I heard 3 gunshots and saw the blood from her wound. I ran inside of my house. I learned later that no one was arrested from the attempted murder of the woman. I do not want to go back to Guatemala because I'm afraid there is no one to protect me in my country. I'm scared that I will be attacked again by that man or someone else. I'm also afraid of gangs in my country. When I arrived at the United States, my mom told me that I was undocumented. I was scared that I could be sent back and be separated from my mom and be put in a dangerous place again. When I received my green card, I felt happy because I knew I would not be deported and I could then go to any college that I wanted. I want to go to attend Sunnybrook University to become a doctor because it is a good school for sciences. I want to be a pediatrician because I love kids and I like to take care of them. I would like to tell the government to give all the kids at the border an opportunity to stay here because violence, sexual assault, trafficking, kidnapping, and murder are the main reasons why children are trying to escape. If you as a government decide to send all those kids back to their home countries, they will be alone with nobody to support them and in a conflict zone that gets dangerous every day. I ask you to put yourself in their shoes and ask how would you want to be treated. Would you want to be sent back to a place where someone tried to harm you? Please do what is best for the kids that are in desperate need of help. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Let me now ask Mayelli, who is 12 years old, from Honduras. She is a top student in her class and loves studying. She wants to be a doctor or a lawyer when she's an adult. She fled Honduras with her little sister Lorena in 2013 after having witnessed violent homicides on 2 separate occasions. Armed men also attempted to kidnap her and her 2 younger sisters. Her extended family told her mom, who had herself fled to the U.S. prior to her girls, that they could no longer take care of her. She crossed the Rio Grande from Mexico into the United States in July of 2013. The girls were detained in freezing cold holding cells for 4 days without any bed or blanket. She was very concerned about her little sister's health because she was shivering the whole time. It was so cold that her lips went blue. She barely slept for 4 days straight and was given only 2 sandwiches per day. She's still angry at how she and her little sister were treated by the United States government. With that, let me turn the opportunity to speak to us. Mijita?
I'm just going to put the speaker on.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Mayelli Hernández. Tengo 12 años y vivo en Long Island, Nueva York, con mi mamá y mi hermana menor, Lorena, quien tiene 9 años. Gracias por la invitación para hablar con ustedes hoy.
Good afternoon. My name is Mayelli Hernandez. I'm 12 years old, and I live in Long Island, New York, with my mother and my younger sister, Lorena, who's 9 years old. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you today.
Cuando tenía 8 años, mi mamá tuvo que venir a los Estados Unidos para que tuviera una vida mejor. Pero cuando ella se fue, yo todos los días lloraba por ella, porque la extrañaba mucho.
When I was 8 years old, my mother had to leave for the United States so that we could have a better life. When she left, I cried every day for her because I missed her so much.
Una de las razones que quería salir de Honduras era por la violencia que había en mi país y también porque a mi hermana le pasó un ataque de epilepsia.
One of the reasons that I left my country, that I left Honduras, was because of the violence in my country and also because my little sister suffered from an epileptic attack.
En 2 casos de mi vida yo vi a una persona mataron a la otra y era muy feo cómo corría la sangre en el suelo.
On 2 different occasions, I saw somebody kill another person, and it was very ugly to see the blood running on the ground.
Tenía miedo que yo podía haber muerto como los otros hombres. Extrañaba a mi mamá mucho. Si tuviera que regresar a mi país, tendría mucho miedo por la violencia.
I was scared that I would be killed like those men were killed. I would miss my mom a lot if I had to go back to my country, and I would be very scared to be hurt by the violence if I had to go back.
Mi viaje a los Estados Unidos fue una gran aventura. En el camino todo fue muy bien. La comida era buena y también nos trataban como personas. Me sentí muy bien.
My trip to the United States was a big adventure. The whole way here, it went very well. The food was good, and we were treated like people. I felt very good.
Pero lo que sufrí más fue cuando crucé el río y los policías me llevaron a las estaciones muy frías.
But when I suffered a lot was after we crossed the river and the police took us into freezing cold police stations.
Ahí las personas no pueden dormir. Tuvimos que dormir en el suelo con un nylon y no era suficiente. La comida no era bastante. Solo nos dieron 2 sándwiches por día.
In there, people couldn't sleep. We had to sleep on the floor, and they only gave us a thin nylon blanket. There wasn't enough food. They only gave us 2 sandwiches a day.
Había bastante frío. Mi hermana tenía azules sus labios. Estuvimos temblando todo el tiempo que estuvimos allí. También era muy difícil para dormir porque los policías siempre estuvieron llamando nuestro nombre. Estuvimos en un cuarto frío por 4 días.
It was very cold in there, and my little sister's lips even turned blue. We were shivering the whole time that we were there. It was also very hard to sleep because the police were always calling our names. And we were there for 4 very cold days.
Por favor, ayuden a los niños como mí y mi hermana. No podemos regresar a nuestros países porque son muy peligrosos y pobres. Estoy feliz por la primera vez viviendo en los Estados Unidos. Mi mamá no se siente triste todo el tiempo. Amo ir a la escuela. Tengo las mejores calificaciones de mi grado. Eventualmente quiero ser doctora o abogada.
Please help protect children like me and my little sister. We can't go back to our countries because they're very dangerous and very poor. For the first time, I'm happy living here in the United States. My mom isn't sad all the time, and I love to go to school. I have the best grades in my class. Eventually, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Me alegro mucho saber que ahora puedo quedarme aquí. Espero que los Estados Unidos sigan ayudando a los niños como yo que necesitan mucha ayuda.
I'm happy to know that I can now stay in the United States, and I hope that the United States continues to help children like me who need a lot of help.
También desearía que no regresaran los niños a sus países porque su mamá hace mucho esfuerzo por traerlo y también ellos corren mucho riesgo en sus países. Gracias por escuchar mi testimonio hoy.
And I would also like to say that I hope that these children are not returned to their countries because their mothers have to struggle a lot to be able to bring them here. Thank you very much for listening to me today.
Thank you, mijita. We all appreciate it. Let me introduce Saul, 15 years old from El Salvador. He will start school in Long Island, New York this September. He lives with his mother and 4 sisters, 3 of whom are younger than him, and also recently crossed into the United States unaccompanied. Saul fled El Salvador in April of 2014. He was a witness of a homicide which occurred right in front of his house. He heard gunshots and rushed to see what had happened. A man he knew was apparently dying from a gunshot wounds in the street. On other occasions, 3 members of MS-13 gang threatened to kill him if he ever rode his bicycle in their territory again. Saul lived a life filled with fear. In school, he was always worried that the day would come that he would be forced to join one of the gangs. In El Salvador, once someone is asked to join a gang, the penalty for refusing to join is death. Saul suffered significantly in the custody of the U.S. Border Patrol. He was detained in a freezing holding cell for 6 days without a bed, blanket, and enough food. He described his time in the so-called hieleras as the worst experience of his life. Por favor, Saúl.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Saúl, tengo 15 años y soy del Salvador. Vivo en Nueva York con mi mamá y mis 4 hermanas. Gracias por la invitación de hablar con ustedes hoy. Quiero contarles sobre por qué yo vine aquí al país de Estados Unidos y también de la experiencia horrible que sufren en la detención de inmigración.
Good afternoon. My name is Saul. I'm 15 years old and from El Salvador. I live in New York with my mother and 4 sisters. Thank you for the invitation to speak with you today. I want to tell you about why I came here to this country, to the United States, and also about the horrible experience that I suffered in immigration detention.
Vine por los Estados Unidos porque tengo miedo de la violencia allá. Vivía con mi abuela y mi bisabuela. Yo he visto horrores que un niño nunca debe tener que ver. No quiero regresar a El Salvador. Hace unos años yo estaba en mi casa adentro cuando escuché disparos de arma. Yo salí afuera, vi al hombre muerto, vi el cartucho vacío, vi mucha sangre. Cuando vi al hombre todavía estaba vivo, pero claro que se estaba muriendo porque había perdido mucha sangre.
I came to the United States because I was afraid of the violence in El Salvador, and I don't want to have to go back to El Salvador to face this. A few years ago, I saw a man die after being shot many times on my street. One day, I was sitting inside my house and I heard gunshots. I saw that on the same block, a man was wounded by bullets, and I saw an empty cartridge. There was a lot of blood.
Hace un año yo estuve amenazado por las maras. Yo estuve en una bicicleta en una zona donde estaban 3 miembros de la mara. Ellos me dijeron que si yo regresaba donde ellos me iban a matar. Y yo solo transportaba unos tamales.
A year ago, I was threatened by gang members, by maras. I was riding my bicycle, and there were 3 members of the gangs who said that if they saw me there again, they would kill me. And all I was doing was delivering tamales.
En mi escuela había muchos miembros de pandilla. Todos supieron quiénes eran los estudiantes que estaban adentro de él. Tenía mucho miedo que un día me iban a forzar a meter con ellos. Mi bisabuela me aconsejó que si yo viera si había muchos miembros de la pandilla juntos, que debo tratar de ignorarlos completamente y no huir, porque si no me forzarían a juntar. Toda la gente sabe que si uno no entra a las maras, el castigo es de muerte.
In my school, there are also a lot of gang members, and everyone always knew who they were, which were the gang members. And we were always afraid that they would try and force us to join the gangs. My grandmother told me that if I saw a lot of gang members together, I should try and avoid them, because if I didn't, then I would be forced to join the gangs. And everybody knows that if you refuse to join the gangs, they'll kill you.
Mi mamá se fue de El Salvador hace mucho tiempo porque estaba huyendo de violencia. No sé los detalles. No quiero morir, no quiero regresar a mi país porque es muy peligroso. Los pandilleros me pueden matar por su gusto.
My mother fled from El Salvador many years ago because of the violence. I don't know all of the details, but I know that I don't want to go back to my country because I don't want to die, and I'm afraid of facing this violence.
En los Estados Unidos yo me siento más seguro, estoy con mi mamá y no tengo que tener miedo cada día de las pandillas. Tengo una bicicleta aquí y no tengo que temer y no tengo que preocupar por entrar en una colonia porque sé que no encontraré a las maras.
In the United States, I feel safer. I'm with my mother, and I don't have to be afraid every day of the gang members. I have a bicycle here, and I don't have to be worried about entering a neighborhood because I know I won't encounter gang members.
Yo crucé la frontera de México a los Estados Unidos en abril de este año. Estuve agarrado inmediatamente después de cruzar el Río Grande por los agentes de inmigración estadounidenses. Era como la 1 de la mañana.
I crossed the border from Mexico into the United States in April of this year, and I was immediately caught while we were crossing the Rio Grande. I was immediately caught by U.S. immigration agents. It was around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Caminé 30 minutos por una estación de inmigración. Estuve puesto en un cuarto grande con 200 niños. Era de 10 para arriba, el cuarto era muy frío, estuve temblando todo el tiempo. No había cama, solo los daba un nylon que casi no los calentaba. Ellos nos daban sándwiches con jamón helado 2 veces por día. Yo tuve mucha hambre porque la comida no era bastante.
I walked 30 minutes to the immigration station where I was placed in a big room with 200 children. They were aged 10 and up. The room was very cold. I was shivering the whole time. There weren't any beds. They gave us nylon, which barely even kept us warm. And they gave us a cold sandwich, ham sandwich, twice a day. I was very hungry because it wasn't enough food.
Cuando unos niños no se comportaban bien, los oficiales de inmigración los castigaban. A los niños los esposaban afuera del cuarto. Los niños afuera estaban peor porque no podían usar el calor del cuerpo para que no sintieran tan frío.
When some of the children didn't behave well, the officials punished them. They handcuffed the children outside of the room. And the children outside were worse off because they couldn't use their body heat to keep from being so cold.
Después de este cuarto fui llevado a otro cuarto grande. Había 200 personas otra vez. Era muy hablaba todo el tiempo. Solo era un baño por 200 personas. Era muy feo porque todos los niños podrían ver que estaba yendo al baño. Nosotros ayudábamos a otros con usar un nylon para que pudieran tener poquita privacidad.
After this room, I was taken to another big room. There were 200 people here again. It was very cold and I shivered a lot. There was only one bathroom for 200 people, and it was very ugly because all the children could see when I was going to the bathroom. We helped each other use the nylon to have a little bit more privacy.
Todo el tiempo que estuve allí, niños estaban llorando.
The whole time I was there, children were crying.
Yo me sentí maltratado. Mi tiempo en las hieleras era la peor experiencia de toda mi vida. Yo apenas dormí por 6 días. La luz fue prendida por 24 horas por día y no los dejaban dormir porque entraban ellos cada 2 horas para contar cuántos niños eran allí.
I felt very mistreated. My time in the ice boxes was the worst experience of my life. I hardly slept for 6 days. The lights were on for 24 hours a day, and they didn't allow us to sleep because they came in every 2 hours to count how many children were there.
Yo me sentí muy débil después de 6 días en las hieleras.
And I felt very weak after 6 days in the ice boxes.
Por favor, no maltratar niños como me han maltratado a mí su gobierno.
Please don't mistreat children the way your government has mistreated me.
Finalmente quiero pedirles no deporten a los niños como yo. Es muy posible que los deportarán a la violencia y a la muerte.
Finally, I want to ask you not to deport children like me because it's very possible that you would deport them to violence and to their death.
Gracias por escuchar mi testimonio.
Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thanks to all of you. Muchísimas gracias. Yo sé que es difícil muchas veces enfrente de tanta gente dar sus historias, pero son tan importantes porque este país nuestro tiene que reconocer que estamos tratando con niños y con una seriedad que la debemos tratar en un modo muy concentrado en proteger a estos niños. With that, let me just thank it takes a lot of guts, and all of us really respect what you said. In front of all these people, we're grateful for presenting your personal stories so that the rest of the country puts a face on the reality that we're dealing with here. And I want to thank you for that tremendous contribution you've done in this whole debate about what we're going to do next. I'm going to introduce my colleague and co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, Keith Ellison, so that he can make a comment and do the honor of introducing our leader that's with us today, Ms. Nancy Pelosi. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I just simply want to thank all of you, Saul, Mayelli, and Ms. Molina and Dulce, for coming here. It's very courageous, very brave, for you to tell your story. I know it's not easy, but you're helping us as members of the Congress get facts and information that will allow us to make good decisions about how to handle unaccompanied children who come to the border. And I just want to let you know that we're all very proud of you. And I know that you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a pediatrician, you're going to be a lawyer, whatever you want to be in this world, you can do it. And with the guts and determination that you've already showed, we're very sure that your future is very bright. And we take everything you said very seriously and understand that you're here not just for yourself, but for all the other kids that you saw in the icebox. So thank you very much. And right now I'd like to turn the microphone over to Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, who has been so compassionate around this issue and many others.
Thank you very much, my colleague, Congressman Ellison, co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, to you and to Raul Grijalva. I thank you for bringing us together today to pay our respects to these young people for their courage, for sharing their experience with them. To them, I say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. And I want you to know how important you are to us. This is quite a distinguished array of members of Congress who are here representing our the Progressive Caucus, but also the Hispanic Caucus, the Black Caucus, the Asian Pacific American Caucus, some of the leaders in the Congress on the subject of immigration, and all supporters of comprehensive immigration reform. The argument that some make that because of what's happening on the border, we shouldn't pass comprehensive immigration reform is upside down. Because of what's happening on the border, we should even more quickly pass comprehensive immigration reform. Your campaign, I love, have a heart. Have a heart, yes. Let's follow your message. Let's follow the lead of the National Catholic Conference of Bishops who talked about the baby Jesus escaping violence as an infant, who talked about sending children back into the circumstances you described as sending children back into a burning building. So it's not just about having a heart, it's about having a soul. And the soul of our country is about respecting the dignity and worth of every person. The soul of our country is about giving every person access to rights who is in our country. And when I arrived, I was just telling Congressman Grijalva and Congressman Ellison of a mutual I saw yesterday who said, we cannot have deportation without representation. So I also thank the groups who are here who advocate for proper representation. Unfortunately, the bill that has come to us that we may be acting upon in a day or two, the supplemental, does not, in my view, have adequate resources for representation, especially of the children who need it even more, but of anyone on our soil. A, and B, does not have sufficient judges to deal with the immigration cases before it. So, again, knowing that putting the spotlight on this challenge through your firsthand experience is very valuable and important to us. Raul described a situation that was terrible. I saw some of that myself in Brownsville. Many of our colleagues have visited there. I know Congresswoman Lofgren, our leader on immigration in the Judiciary Committee, complained along with others about what we saw. And I think that already we have seen some improvement in the situation. But we need to do so very much more. So we do appeal to our country and to our colleagues to have a heart when it comes to people coming into our country, some seeking amnesty and asylum to escape violence in Central America or wherever they come from. But again, we do not yet have on the floor the proper opportunity to address those concerns. Your testimony today takes us closer to a place where we can have a heart and recognize the soul of our country is about, and that is about respecting the dignity and worth and the rights of every single person. So thank you. Thank you, Dulce. Thank you. Now I'm going to hopefully pronounce it correctly. Mayelli. Thank you, Saul, for your courage and for being here with us today. And thank you to those organizations whose advocacy is so important for helping us have a heart and honor our soul. I thank you, my chairman, and yield back.
Thank you, Madam Leader. Very important that you joined us, and we thank you very much. I want to open up the opportunity if any members have any questions for some time of the young people or the representative that are here. I'm going to, some of the people that signed the invitation letter, let me, and help convene this, let me begin with them and turn to, for either a comment or a question to Jan Schakowsky, Representative. If you have any comment or a question.
Well, I just want to thank our powerful witnesses for being here today. Last week, I went to a shelter for unaccompanied children from the border that's in my district. And one of the things I don't understand is why was it so cold? Why was it so cold? It doesn't need to be so cold. And I was told that one of the guards said to a child, "This is where you wanted to come." And in other words, you know, maybe you made a mistake making this trip. So I hope by now, and I've heard by now, that the situation is better, that there's real blankets for the children. But I apologize to you for the conditions that you met. And I heard from other children, too, that the worst part for them was when they got to the United States. That, you know, the trip, I think Mayelli said it was okay. One of you said it was, or was it you, Dulce, Mayelli, that it was okay. But once you got here, so I'm sorry about that. I also talked to a girl, even younger than Mayelli, who told me, she was 10 years old, that when she was 7 years old, she was in the house with her brother, who's now 13, and some gang members came in, and they asked for rent, really security money, and they couldn't pay it. And so she and her brother were in the house when every adult was shot and killed. And so she has finally made it to the United States where her father is, and we hope that she'll be united. None of you should have to go back, and none of you, now that you're here, should be treated with anything other than great respect, and today, with great gratitude for your coming here and telling us your story. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why was it so cold?
And another member that helped convene this hearing, and let me ask in this order, Ms. Barbara Lee, Representative Lee, and Representative Roy Allard, if they would comment or a question to the children. Thank you. Ms. Lee?
Thank you very much. Let me thank you, Mr. Grijalva, Mr. Ellison, Leader Pelosi, and all of those who are here today for this very powerful hearing. And I want to just associate myself with all of the remarks that have been made and say to you that, first of all, we appreciate your being here and seeing the United States of America as a refuge from fleeing such terrible conditions. Secondly, in listening to your testimony, I felt ashamed. And I asked my colleagues, are you talking about America? Is this America? where you fled and were treated as you were? And so I too want to just say to you that this country is a country that stands for liberty and justice for all. As our Statue of Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free.
Yeah, that's something.
And so your powerful words and presence and testimony today really have reminded us of what we stand for and who we are as a country. And so I look forward to working with all of my colleagues here and to find a way forward so that you and all of the children will feel safe and secure and reunited with your families. And just know that we, as Americans, once again appreciate your voices and communicating with us the tragic realities of what is taking place in your country. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roybal-Allard, any comments or any questions to the children?
Well, I just would like to associate myself with many of the comments that my colleagues have already made. And I certainly want to thank my colleagues, Congressman Ellison and Grijalva, for their leadership on this issue, and to thank the children that are here. It took a lot of courage to come to this country, and it certainly has taken a lot of courage to be here today to tell your personal stories. So I want to thank you for that. And I think that your stories and what you have described as to what has happened to you when you got here is exactly why it is absolutely critical that our Republican leadership bring up the President's request for a clean supplemental bill that would provide the resources that our law enforcement needs, both Border Patrol and ICE and others, to help prevent the worsening of your experiences. They are telling us that they are going to run out of money very soon, which means that, as you described, you didn't have enough food, there weren't enough blankets, and although, as you have heard, we've made some progress, we will be taking major steps backwards unless Congress acts and passes a clean supplemental that does not take away the rights that children from Central America now have to due process. And unfortunately, that is one of the proposals that is being made. You will hear about let's treat all children the same. Well, we agree. We want to treat children the same, but we want to treat them in a way that protects them and gives them the right of due process. What my Republican colleagues are saying by treating children the same is by actually taking away the right to due process that the Central American children have today. So I think it's important that we recognize the tremendous courage and the violence from which these children are fleeing, and that, as my colleague has said, this is a test of our American values. And this is a test to the world as to are we going to live up to our American values and the respect that we have for children and for those who are suffering, and send a tremendous message to the world that we live by the values that we espouse to others. Thank you.
Thank you. And I went out in order of when colleagues arrived. They handed me a list, so don't be mad at me if I if I didn't do the sequence correctly. We'll blame somebody else. But I want to offer the opportunity for the members that took the time to be here. We have another panel coming after this. We can hold the questions and comments till then, but and allow these young people to go ahead and be excused and invite the other panel up. And in order of sequence, Ms. Representative Hahn, if you have any comments or questions?
Thank you very much, and again to Congressman Grijalva and Ellison for hosting this. Leader Pelosi, thank you for your presence here today, and I also want to thank the three of you for having the courage to come here and give us your testimony. I have a couple of granddaughters. One, she's 11, and the other is 10. And Mayelli, you really remind me of one of my granddaughters. And when you were crying, I really, my heart was breaking, and I wanted to come over there and hug you. And I can't imagine my own granddaughters being alone and cold, without enough food or blankets, without their parents. I can't even imagine that scenario. So I am also sorry for the conditions you found yourself in, and I wish all three of you the best. Dulce, I was going to address my question to you. In August, I'm going to be traveling to Guatemala. Yes, and I am planning on speaking about the problem that we're having. I'm sure I'm going to meet with other children who have either gone through what you're going through or are contemplating doing what you have done. And what advice would you give to other young people in Guatemala who are feeling fearful and unsure of their current situation and want to come to the United States? And then maybe you could tell us, how can we make this better? How can we make our system better for those children who feel their only hope is to come to the United States?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, it is. Well, thank you for the question, and sorry, I'm a little nervous. Well,
I am too.
My advice, my advice will be that actually when I came to the United States, everything was all right with me. The only thing that, like, the worst thing that happened to me was in Guatemala. And
what advice would you give to some of your friends that are still in Guatemala?
Yeah, I do have friends, my cousin and everything. My advice will be, like, right now in the United States, I'm actually really happy. I'm getting a good education, more advanced than I used to get over there. And I'm pretty sure that, like, if they have, like, a really strong reason to come to this country because of the violence and a lot of horrible things that are going on in our country, will be, like, I found a refuge in here that they're actually helping me and everything. And I really don't have words to describe, like, what advice would I give them, but I'm really happy here. I'm with my family. And thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you.
I didn't know if some of the others wanted to answer. How can we make it better?
¿Los demás quieren una respuesta a la pregunta? Saúl.
Sí, bueno, Mayelli would like to.
Por favor.
¿Qué consejo quiere dar a los hondureños que están enfrentando la violencia en su país?
I like this little girl.
Yo le quiero decir a las personas de mi país que no se rindan porque porque aquí hay un mejor futuro y ellos van a poder seguir estudiando y no van a tener problemas en su país. Gracias.
I would like to the thing that I would like to tell people in my country is not to give up, that there is a better future here, and here you'll be able to continue studying and not have the same kind of problems that we have. Thank you.
¿Algo, Saúl?
Sí
o no.
Entonces, ¿quiere dar consejo a los niños en El Salvador? para qué deben hacer si enfrentan violencia.
Great question.
Y si no tienen no tienen el consejo, está bien. Okay.
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 Gracias.
Doesn't have it back.
Gracias a todos. Y, antes que llamemos no, got carried away there. Before we call the next panelist up, let me, another person that was arrived in the sequence, Ms. Holmes Norton, if there's any comments or questions you might have, please.
I certainly want to thank our co-chairs for this hearing. It's already proved compelling. The first thing I want to say to the children is welcome to the United States.
La primera
Thank
cosa
you.
que quiere decir es venir a los Estados Unidos.
It does seem to me that that's the first thing that should have been said to children who have made such a long and traumatic journey. And I hope that the children see by the presence of the leader of our party in the Congress, along with members of Congress, that what you experienced at the border is not typical of the people of the United States. Your testimony has been compelling, but it has been shocking. And I believe we should call for an investigation of what happened at the border. They may have been unprepared, but what we saw on television were people greeting children at the border. These are the first children we've had the opportunity to hear from. We've been hearing by proxy. We've heard no direct testimony. You have really done, members of Congress, and I think members of the public, a great service by raising your little voices so we could hear directly from children. For our 15-year-old, is she Dulce? What is her name?
Dulce.
Dulce?
Dulce.
Did you speak English when you came to this country?
No.
Oh.
How long have you been in this country?
5 years.
Do you hear this virtually perfect English? No. I mean, I just hope those who have not supported immigration reform can hear what this young immigrant has learned in that short time and will understand by the example you have given.
Thank you.
Just how important it is to have young people like you in our country and how much you are bound to contribute to our country. I've listened very attentively because my district is one of the districts which has of the districts that have children from Central America. 3 of them have the most, and not my district, the District of Columbia, is one of them. And by the way, many of them are from El Salvador in particular. There are almost 200 children in my district right now from the countries of the children who have spoken here today. I would like to ask the 2 children who came, I believe, unaccompanied, whether they were given any assistance by lawyers or others when asked questions about how they got here, and by those who make decisions on whether or not they should stay here. Who helped you? Is this Saul who wants to speak?
Mayelli. Just to clarify, the question is whether they had given any assistance, legal assistance when they were in the...
Yes.
Okay. ¿Usted fue dar asistencia?
I mean, they had to answer questions. They are now in this country, and I take it they can stay here. Who helped them answer the questions?
A mí nadie me ayudó para responder las preguntas. Nadie estuvo conmigo, solo yo y mi hermana. Y yo fui la única que sabía que decirle a los policías porque porque yo era la mayor de yo y mi hermana. Solo éramos las dos.
Nobody helped me to know what to say. It was just me and my sister, and so I was the only one who knew what to say to the police because I'm the older of the two.
A mí no, nadie me ayudó, solo me hicieron preguntas, preguntas así, normal, todos mis datos, cómo me llamaba, cuántos años tenía, y de qué país venía, y me tomaron todos los datos, huellas, todo.
Nobody helped me. They just asked me a lot of questions. What you would expect. All of my information, my name, what country I came from. They just collected all of my information and took my fingerprints.
Well, these are very bright and savvy children that they were able to respond. I think even adults would have a difficult time responding and then getting able to stay in this country. I have written a letter to the District of Columbia Bar Association asking for pro bono lawyers to be of assistance here, not only in the District of Columbia to the almost 200 children who are already here, but to go to the border, just as pro bono lawyers have gone to the polls to help us during election time. I just think it's after that trauma and after the kind of treatment, at least initially, that was received, and I know that there are nonprofits at the border. It does seem to me that all the help we can get, and during the August recess, I hope there will be lawyers who will make their way to the border, not just members of Congress. Thank you very much, and welcome again to our country.
Let me thank the children and invite the next panel. And while I'm doing that, Ms. Jackson-Lee, any comments that you might have?
May I just thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and ask the children before they move from the table. Let me thank you and Mr. Ellison and all of the conveners, and thank our leader for her spirit. I've decided to put on my heart, and I hope my fellow members will take their Have a Heart and place it on their lapel. And I'm going to move mine close to my heart. But I want you all to know that we are here because we have a heart and because we want our Republican friends to, as well, listen to the stories that you've just given. I want to emphasize what my good friend, Congresswoman Rabal Allard, emphasized. There is no reason to change the Wilberforce law, and I'd like to just hold up this paper for you children. This is a law, and this is a law that gives you rights. And I believe after we hear your stories, we know that you deserve those rights. So I just want to ask Dulce, you went to a court in New York, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you have a lawyer?
Yes.
And was the lawyer for you? That was your lawyer?
For me and my sister.
You and your sister, so two children had a lawyer.
Yeah.
And could that lawyer explain to you what was going on?
Yes.
And did that lawyer explain what your rights were? This is what they're going to do in the court?
Yes.
Did that make you feel better?
It actually made me feel really secure of my...
And then the judge was able to ask you what you had been through, is that correct?
Yes.
And so all we're asking in the law that is here, child, at some point to have what Dulce had, and that is a lawyer to express what your rights are. And Dulce, you want to be a doctor.
Yes, I do.
I don't want to embarrass you. Do you think you've been a good girl?
Yes.
And your sister's been a good girl?
Yes.
And you indicated that you love this country for its opportunities.
Yes, I do.
If my Republican friends and others who may have questions would wear this sign of I have a heart and understand that the bill that we have is to give the rights to children and to have a heart about their rights so they can understand it. I want to thank my colleagues for this hearing, but it is imperative that the Wilberforce law not be changed, because when we have lawyers that can pro bono or paid that can help Dulce and her sister or help Saul or Mayelli. They can know their rights, and the courts and America can be made better because justice and due process has been held. So I thank you. I just want to commend my colleagues to a bill to add more immigration judges, that we should have 70, and I hope we can really get to a good bill and the passage of the full supplemental. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, and thank all of you. So much appreciated, and I can't put into words the collective admiration that all of us have for you, and also the motivation that you provide to us for this Congress to do the right things for kids and to do the right thing in this instance that we're going to face in the next few days. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Apreciamos tanto que están aquí. Los comentarios de ustedes, sus historias, ha tenido un impacto tremendo en cada uno de nosotros. Gracias por darnos el motivo, por seguir asegurando que los derechos de ustedes van a ser protegidos. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And let me invite the next panel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can we, yeah, I want to.
You're welcome.
That little girl in the middle is something. I know, she was very impressive. There's, to my colleagues that are here while the panel sits down, as soon as they're done with their testimony, I'm going to go down the road to those that have not had an opportunity to ask a question or speak, beginning with Mr. O'Rourke, Zoe, Ms. Loughran, Mr. Conyers, and as soon as this part of the transition is done. Hmm? Is he gone? Okay. While we're transferring over, the next panel could have a seat so we can. I want to take time to from Representative Chu's office, Jolene Rivera, Linda Shim, for their work in putting this together. Kelsey Mishkin and Norma Salazar, from our office, and the communications folks, and Mike, Director of CPC, for their fine work in putting this together. It's a job well done, and I want to thank you for that, for all that work. Thank you very much. Where do I start? Where's the? Yeah. Oh, there it is. Let me welcome the second panel and thank you very much. And as Leader Pelosi said, there is many organizations that have been so helpful in not only this hearing, but in the cause of making sure we provide the protections that these children deserve. And three of those very significant, four are here today with us. So let me begin with Ms. Jessica Jones, Children and Youth Policy Advocate, Lutheran Immigration Refugee Services. And with that, let me turn the floor over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here, and thank you for the organizers of this hearing and for the members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Most particularly, I would also like to extend gratitude to Representative Loughran and Representative Roybal-Allard for their long history in introducing legislation instrumental in protecting children and youth who migrate to the U.S. alone. With a 75-year history of serving refugees and migrants, LIRS has over 30 years of experience helping to resettle children from all over the world, including Central America. During this child refugee crisis, LIRS has been working alongside the government with a national network of social service partners to address the needs of these children and youth. These services safeguard unaccompanied migrant children's best interests and recognize their vulnerabilities to exploitation and abuse. My testimony today will focus on the legislative intent behind the provisions related to unaccompanied children in the bipartisan legislation, the William Wilberforce Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2008. I will then touch upon the key areas of protection services that LIRS provides to these kids. Following the 1997 Flores settlement establishing minimum standards of custody, the Homeland Security Act of 2002 built upon these protections and created the definition of the unaccompanied alien child, or UAC. Despite these important provisions, the Flores and Homeland Security Act framework for child protection remained incomplete until the introduction of the Unaccompanied Alien Child Protection Act, or the UACPA, in 2000 by Senator Feinstein and later in the House by Representative Wu and then Representative Lofgren. It is important to highlight the UACPA, as many of these provisions eventually made it into the TVPRA of 2008, while some key provisions were left out. Most notably, the provisions for the appointment of a guardian ad litem, GAL, and attorney at no expense to the government if necessary, never made it into the TVPRA. Nonetheless, Congress's intent with the TVPRA could not be clearer. The TVPRA recognized many unaccompanied migrant children who have survived trafficking, are afraid to come forward, or may not understand that they were victimized and need protective services. Children are often unaware of the illegality of the abuse or that laws and services exist to protect them. By adding some of the UACPA provisions, the TVPRA's intent was to better identify child trafficking survivors and better and prevent their future trafficking. The TVPRA accomplished this by putting the onus on the U.S. government to ensure children are screened for potential trafficking before return to their home countries. It also reaffirmed the U.S. commitment to the best interests of the child for all children in the U.S. These protections are ensuring the non-refoulement of Mexican minors, the legal obligation to not return or expel a person where their life or freedom is threatened, restricting the time in Customs and Border Protection custody, access to immigration courts rather than expedited removal, custody that is in the child's best interest, and ensuring safe release, providing safe repatriation services, and facilitating access to legal counsel and legal orientation programs. With regards to custody that is in the child's best interest and ensuring safe release, the TVPRA required ORR to put in place the following. All potential sponsors must have identity verification and assessment for potential risk to the child. Currently, ORR conducts fingerprinting of all non-parent sponsors. For especially vulnerable children, safe release to a sponsor requires a home study and post-release follow-up services. It also permits, but does not require, ORR to provide post-release services to children to better integrate into their homes and communities. In LIRS's experience, fingerprinting, home studies, and post-release services have proven invaluable to identifying and preventing child neglect, abuse, and trafficking. These services have been critical in orientating families towards the legal obligations of attending court and school and connecting them to community support systems and access to counsel. In turn, children have higher rates of appearance in court and are able to integrate into their communities better. Finally, it is LIRS's position that instead of amending the TVPRA to prevent the reception and the protection of children seeking refuge, we urge Congress to focus on filling the protection gaps of the TVPRA. If the protection gaps are addressed, the current child refugee crisis and resource inequalities will be alleviated. I will end my testimony here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Mr. Jonathan Ryan from Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to begin by thanking the members of Congress and our policymakers nationally for coming together during this time of great uncertainty. The Refugee and Immigrant Center for Education and Legal Services, or RAICES, has been serving vulnerable populations of refugees and victims of torture since 1986. It is during these times of perceived crisis that we get to experience firsthand what our community and our country is all about, and also what it represents to people around the world who long for the freedom and liberty that we routinely take for granted. I am honored to have been given the time to share with you what we have learned in Texas over the past few months. Our mission is to protect refugees, and in furtherance of that mission, we assist unaccompanied children to navigate our nation's immigration court system and to better understand their rights and responsibilities in that process. Since June 9, 2014, we have been providing Know Your Rights presentations and confidential legal screenings to nearly 1,200 unaccompanied children currently in HHS custody at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. We have carefully peer-reviewed the intakes of 925 children so far, and our assessment is that 63% of these 925 children are likely to be found eligible for relief by a U.S. immigration judge. In Raíces' many years of experiences, the cases that our staff and volunteer pro bono representatives have accepted for representation using this screening process ultimately have a success rate of over 98% in proceedings before immigration judges. Thus, Raíces' legal determinations are supported by hundreds of favorable adjudications on behalf of our unaccompanied children clients. The children we serve at Lackland are fleeing unspeakable violence. The vast majority are from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Our interviews confirm that many of these children are victims of sexual assault, trafficking, domestic abuse, gang intimidation, persecution, and torture. Raíces' staff and volunteers have met with girls as young as 12 years old who fled criminal gangs attempting to force them into sexual exploitation. The phenomenon occurring in these countries can be described as a war on children, where local gangs target boys and girls as young as 8 or 9 to transport drugs, coerce them to join through death threats, and force them into participating in the new normalized criminal activity that is rampant and widespread. The children and their families who have faced such violence and difficult conditions have made a conscious decision to seek refuge in the United States because they fear their very lives are at stake. At this moment in my testimony, I would like to share with you the experience that was shared with me of a young boy whom I met at Lackland Air Force Base just a few weeks ago. To protect his identity, I will not use his name. We will call him Refugio. Refugio left Honduras 4 months ago with his sister. 5 years ago, their father was murdered. Following the murder of their father, their mother remarried with a man who was himself involved with the criminal violence that has taken over Honduras. From a young age, this new stepfather began to recruit and prepare this young boy to become part of the criminal network that he served. Early on in their time together, because this young boy failed to follow the instructions of his stepfather, he beat him so badly that he broke his arm. It's crooked. He had pretty much resigned himself to the fact that he was going to be part of this criminal network because he could no longer do any other work with his crooked arm. As he grew older and as his young sister, Esperanza, grew older, she too began to be recruited. In fact, not to be a part of the network, but to be one of its subjects, to be exploited sexually by the criminal network. This was when the boy could take no more. Without telling his mother or his stepfather, they left their home. They joined another group of children who were traveling alone on top of a train that they call the Beast, because children are mangled as they fall off and are struck by objects that hit them when they're sleeping at night. They had to pay, as a group of children, they had to collect their resources and pay bribes to Mexican policemen all along the way to be allowed to go further. On one such occasion, the group of children did not have enough money, and so the policemen turned them over to the Zetas. The Zetas began to extort money from their families in order to allow the children to move forward. Well, Refugio and Esperanza did not have that family, and so the Zetas took Esperanza. They let Refugio go. He spent 8 days in the hieleras. We've heard children reporting as many as 12. Before he got to an HHS facility where he was able to begin the process of speaking to someone about the experiences that he had suffered. He's there at Lackland today, and he waits every day thinking that his sister is going to show up. We unfortunately know that she won't. How we respond to the current regional humanitarian crisis in which children are fleeing in every direction and in need of protection speaks to the moral character of our nation. The decisions that we make now have the potential to bolster our human rights record, or they may in fact undermine our ability to hold other international actors accountable in the future for their treatment of vulnerable populations. Raíces has been providing legal services to unaccompanied children for more than 2 decades, and I could not be more proud of the difficult and often thankless work that my staff has performed over the course of this summer. We know firsthand that affording these children proper screening for trafficking and persecution, as well as the opportunity to be represented by counsel and receive fair and full consideration before an immigration judge, could well be the difference between life and death. We urge you to prioritize the protection of these children and ensure that they receive due process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me now ask Megan McKenna, Kids in Need of Defense Communications Director, please.
Thank you, Congressman Grijalva, Congressman Ellison, and other members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus for inviting KIND to testify before you today. KIND, my organization, has matched unaccompanied children with pro bono attorneys since 2009. We have partnered with more than 210 law firms, corporations, and law schools, which agree to represent on a volunteer basis the children referred to us. KIND has trained more than 7,300 pro bono attorneys and has been referred over 6,300 children since we opened our doors. The response from the private sector has been and continues to be tremendous. KIND is gravely concerned about the treatment of these uniquely vulnerable children who are coming to the U.S. in record numbers to seek our protection from the vicious and pervasive violence in their home countries, of which they are specific targets. Many of these children, including a large number of the children referred to KIND, are fleeing forced recruitment by gangs, which in turn are supported by organized criminal cartels, largely funded by narco-trafficking. Refusal to join their ranks results in terrifying threats, violence, and even death. Their situation is similar to child soldiers throughout the world. A child KIND works with said simply, "It's flee or die." The UN Refugee Agency has found that 58% of the unaccompanied children coming to the U.S. are potentially eligible for U.S. protection. That is, they could be refugees. The United States, which ratified the 1967 protocol to the 1951 Refugee Convention, has incorporated a number of its provisions into U.S. law through the 1980 Refugee Act. In enacting this law, Congress showed its intention to conform U.S. asylum law to our international obligations. As such, the United States has an obligation to ensure that those coming to our borders to seek asylum or other U.S. protection have a full and fair chance to make their claim for U.S. protection. Regarding the children who have come hundreds and thousands of miles without a caretaker to seek safety, our obligations could not be clearer. As a global leader in the protection of the most vulnerable, we must ensure that these children's cases are heard by an immigration judge and that the children are given adequate time to find counsel and present their case. Many of these children are traumatized by what they have fled in their home country and by their journey to the United States and need time to recover and to be able to share their difficult experiences. We recognize that not all these children will be able to stay in the United States, but without a fair process to determine who is eligible for U.S. protection and who is not, there is no question that we will be sending children back to serious harm. To turn potential refugees away without adequate screening and due process would send a disastrous message to the rest of the world regarding refugee protection and our obligation to the international refugee framework. How can we demand that countries neighboring Syria take in nearly 3 million refugees, for example, but turn our backs on tens of thousands of children from our own neighbors? Our current laws are designed to efficiently make these determinations for our unaccompanied children. the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, TVPRA, which importantly recognizes the unique vulnerabilities of these children, includes the necessary flexibility to address this migration emergency without undermining the vital protections for unaccompanied children that the law provides. It allows for the full adjudication of their claims for protection through timely proceedings while ensuring their appropriate care in the interim. Amending the TVPRA to allow Customs and Border Protection to screen all children in the expedited and flawed way it currently screens children from Mexico soon after their arrival violates the principles of due process and fundamental fairness. Imagine being an 11-year-old arriving alone at the border, traumatized, confused, and unable to speak English, and having to explain to a government official within days why you are afraid to go home. Or a young girl who has been gang raped, having to share details of this trauma with an armed stranger. A recent report by UNHCR found that the Border Patrol screening of unaccompanied children from Mexico woefully inadequate and clearly shows the serious problems with this approach. The response to this migration is multifaceted but doable. The U.S. must significantly increase funding to the immigration court system to ensure the timely adjudication of these children's cases. The court's significant backlog of cases predates this migration and is the result of years of underfunding. Sufficient funding would mean a faster but still fair process. Another component could be orderly departure programs, ODPs, including in-country processing alternatives in the top sending countries. This would allow children to have their claims heard in their own country by U.S. officials or be evacuated to a safe location for processing, and provides an alternative to the life-threatening journey to the United States. A best interest determination or equivalent process could be established to identify those at greatest risk of persecution or other human rights abuses, and or for whom going to the United States would be the best outcome for the child. Such programs were established in response to the increase in Haitians coming to the U.S. in the early 1980s and in the Vietnam boat crisis. An orderly departure process, however, must serve to reinforce protection, not undermine the right to seek asylum and other forms of protection within the United States. Children who reach our borders must still be processed under our domestic protection system and not sent back to their country to then apply through an orderly departure process. Solutions must also include addressing the root causes of the children's migration and robust repatriation and reintegration services to ensure the safe and sustainable return of children found ineligible for U.S. protection. In conclusion, the U.S. can address this historic migration of children without changing current laws and in a way that ensures their protection while supporting a fair, compassionate, and orderly response that upholds our international and moral obligations to the most vulnerable. Thank you again for the opportunity to present to you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Let me, from the Washington Office of Latin America, Senior Associate for Citizen Security, Adriana Beltran. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Representative Grijalva, Representative Ellison, Representative Chu, and members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before the caucus today on behalf of WOLA, the Washington Office on Latin America. My name is Adriana Beltran, and I coordinate WOLA's Citizen Security Program. For 4 decades, WOLA has worked to promote comprehensive reforms to address the root causes of violence in Central America and ensure effective and accountable police and judicial systems. It is important to understand the magnitude of the community-level violence these children left behind and will face again if they are sent back without addressing these dangers. Behind the wave of children and families at the border, 2 factors stand out: violence in their home communities and lack of opportunities. They are not just coming to the United States. According to figures from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, from 2008 to 2013, Mexico, Panama, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Belize saw a combined 712% increase in the number of asylum requests for individuals from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. These 3 countries, known as Central America's Northern Triangle, are among the world's most violent countries. According to the Office of Drugs and Crime, Honduras ranks first globally with a homicide rate of 90 per 100 inhabitants. El Salvador is 4th with a rate of just over 41, and Guatemala is 5th with a rate of nearly 40. Youth from marginalized communities are disproportionately affected by this violence. In Honduras, data compiled by Covenant House revealed that from January to June, of 2013, 409 children under the age of 18 were murdered. In neighboring El Salvador, so far this year, the murder rate of children under 17 has increased by 77% from the same period a year ago. Women and girls are increasingly victims of violence. In Honduras, murders of women have increased over 263% between 2005 and 2013. According to the Pew Research Center, the number of unaccompanied girls under 18 intercepted at the border rose by 77% this fiscal year, most of them from Honduras. Drug trafficking is part of the problem. It corrupts the justice and security systems and is linked to some of the violence. However, while the drug trade is a factor, cartels are more interested in seeking a low profile than engaging in extreme violence against the population. Instead, the violence in Central America is primarily community-level violence, including domestic violence and child abuse, extortion, street-level drug dealing, and gang-related violence. Street gangs impact every aspect of life in the neighborhoods they control and are responsible for a significant percentage of the violence. They engage in violent turf battles, kidnapping, human trafficking, and the extortion of local businesses, bus drivers, and residents. Failure to pay often results in harassment or violence. Gangs sometimes employ join-or-die recruitment practices, forcing many children and youth to drop out of school or relocate. Victims of extortion, kidnapping, sexual abuse, and death threats frequently find no protection from the authorities. In fact, many fear the police as much as the criminals. In the Northern Triangle countries, rule of law and law enforcement institutions are weak and corrupted. The majority of the police forces are underfunded, plagued by poor leadership, and sometimes complicit in criminal activity. Compounding the problem of violence in these countries is the lack of opportunities, particularly for young people, the poor, and the lower middle class. There is no magic solution to the endemic violence and poverty in the Northern Triangle. These are profoundly difficult problems that will require short and long-term responses. But we must recognize that unless the factors that originally drove these children to flee are addressed, it is likely that many will attempt the return to the United States rather than become victims of their community's spiral of violence. Adding more funding for border security will not solve the problem. The children are not trying to avoid detection. They are turning themselves in. There is urgent need for the Congress to step up and provide funding to protect the children who are fleeing violence in Central America. Congress should not leave town without addressing the immediate needs for funds to ensure that children and other migrants at the border are treated humanely and their cases are evaluated individually. Children should not be deported back to situations that threaten their lives and their safety. For children and families who are deported, immediate funding is necessary to support in-country programs to receive, protect, and reintegrate children, teenagers, and families. Congress should also begin to face the long-term problem. The United States should prioritize assistance packages for El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras that address the widespread community-level violence and underlying poverty that is endemic in these countries. The problem is not simply a question of resources. Evidence suggests that continuing investment in community-based violence prevention initiatives that involve local community groups, churches, police, social services, and government agencies can make a real difference in reducing youth violence and victimization. These efforts need to be paired with programs to help those governments committed to public security reform build effective, accountable, and professional police forces, prosecutors, and courts. To date, U.S. assistance has placed too much emphasis on equipment, infrastructure, and training that barely touch the surface of the problems. Corruption, transparency, and accountability must be a central component of the strategy. Similarly, greater investment over a sustained period of time is needed to support job training and job creation programs focused on urban youth and targeted communities. The Senate supplemental includes funding to protect children and families and invest in civil society organizations that can hold public institutions accountable for results. It also supports to strengthen effective law enforcement, good governance, and justice sector. This is the direction U.S. policy should move toward in the future. There are no quick fixes for addressing these complex issues. The United States and the Central American governments have an opportunity to act decisively and support a comprehensive, targeted strategy to address the cycle of violence and poverty. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I turn to the sequence, Mr. O'Rourke, and I think Mr. Honda has left as well. Quick question. One of the rationales of the principal sponsor in the House of Representatives for changing the law, basically taking out the due process and beginning the process of dismantling this protection. It's an interesting argument, and maybe I can get a reaction, quick one from you guys. The rationale he seems to think is a fairness issue. Why we need to change this? Why we need to change this law and eliminate Central America from the protection of the law, saying, you know, we need to treat them just like Mexicans. I find that ironic, and not very bright, but ironic nevertheless. React to that, because that's one of the rationales that I find so confusing. That in the spirit of equity, let's treat everybody badly.
There's a presumption built into that statement that the regulations and the laws are being followed as they pertain to Mexicans. It's clear that they're not. There is supposed to be a presumption that the child will be harmed unless the child is able to present evidence that it is safe for that child to return. It is impossible, based on the numbers of Mexican children who are presenting themselves to the border and the few numbers who are making it to the HHS facilities, where organizations such as Raíces and others here provide services, that those regulations and those laws are being followed. So to presume that it's being followed is the first error. Second, clearly our responsibilities towards children are greater than just rounding them up and shipping them home to be persecuted and tortured. So I don't know how other people on the panel might feel to that.
Adriana, no? Any? Then I want to turn to Mr. O'Rourke, if you don't mind, sir, for any comments.
Yeah, I mean,
loaded question, I realize that, but a loaded response would be fine.
I was just going to say, I mean, just to build on what Jonathan's talking about, I mean, this is an issue of child protection, and that's first and foremost what we should be looking at, and where they're coming from, and who we treat, you know, in what way. I mean, I think we need to just go back down to the basics, and it's really very simple.
Thank you. Yes.
Right. I would just add that if we do change the system and have Central American kids treated the same way as kids from contiguous countries, you will be seeing kids who are sent back who have legitimate asylum claims and trafficking claims. And we do not want to see that. Yeah.
Adriana?
I would just like to add to what my colleagues have said with a question in terms of, you know, what are we sending these kids back to, given the, you know, endemic levels of violence and poverty that we see in Central America today?
Yeah, that's my own confusion, that I don't feel that I have the intuitive powers that maybe some other colleagues that are promoting the idea of getting rid of the law, that they intuitively know all of them are going to be fine. I don't have those intuitive powers. And I think for members of Congress to bear some responsibility because they changed the law for tragedies that will happen in the future, I think that's a piece of responsibility that I don't want, and I hope many of the members don't want. Mr. O'Rourke, do you have any questions or comments?
Sure. First of all, thanks for allowing me to sit in.
Of course.
With everyone today. And thank you for your testimony. You know, the only problem I could find with it is it's just too rational and logical for this place. Your hair's not on fire. You're not screaming about an invasion or a flood of people taking over this country. So it's hard to get people to listen to these things that make so much obvious common sense to us. You know, and the only thing I'd argue to the chair and to everyone who's talking about this publicly is I'd argue that we shouldn't use the word crisis, even though we precede it with humanitarian crisis. I think when you say crisis, it allows people to accept extreme measures to respond to it. So when maybe you live in middle America, you're not overly familiar with what's going on, you hear a humanitarian crisis and somebody wants to send the National Guard, it seems to make sense. We send the National Guard to the different crises that we have. So I think we have this one covered. I think we have the resources to do this. You look at total apprehensions. 15 years ago, 1.6 million people apprehended at our southern border. Last year, a little over 400,000. Even with these kids and families from Central America this year, we won't hit 500,000. We definitely have the resources, the capacity. You've made perfectly sensible recommendations that I think should be part of any legislation going forward. Every kid should have an attorney. To the chairman's point, we should treat everyone equally, which means that we should have the same superior standards applied to Mexican children as we do, as we're supposed to do with kids from Central America and elsewhere. I'm really interested in this orderly departure process. because I think it makes a lot of sense. If you buy or accept at face value the argument that people are putting forth who are proponents of the Humane Act, which would reduce the standards of due process for these kids from Central America. They say they're doing it so that they can dissuade these kids and families from making this dangerous journey north. I think if we address that by some kind of orderly departure, some kind of refugee screening process, and do it honestly, and learn from our mistakes with Haiti and other countries where we've tried this, I think there's something really powerful to that. And so really, I don't know if I have any question. I would love to take everything that you said and package it and put it into law and address it. I think we're, again, perfectly capable of doing this. It would not be a strain on current resources. Someone has shown that if we were to provide every child with an attorney, we'd more than make up for the cost in court savings and detention savings. We find that the vast majority of these kids, when they have an attorney, actually show up for their hearing. I mean, there's just so many good facts and information. I think our challenge is, and maybe this would be my question, is how you recommend, because to a degree you're talking to the choir here. I mean, how we compel or make a compelling argument to our colleagues, including some Democrats, that what you're describing is the right thing to do. And I think about this. I was doing some research on refugees from Europe in the 1930s, and we all know about the famous case of the St. Louis that steamed towards Cuba and then the United States and was turned back with nearly 1,000 Jews, a quarter of whom we know perished in the Holocaust. And there was a bill at the time offered by a senator from New York and a representative from Massachusetts that would have increased the quota for visas for Jewish children by 20,000, and it failed in committee. And there's not a member of Congress today who would not have voted for that had they been back there at the time. I feel like we're going to be judged very similarly about what's happening. Your story about Esperanza, I mean, how could you not act and do the right thing when you know what's going on? So any thoughts about how we talk about this in a way that's compelling to more than just those who either live on the border or progressive in their ideology or who get it?
Something that informs my approach to my practice as an immigration lawyer, and maybe I'm a lawyer nerd, but I take great pride in the fact that the law that I practice, refugee and asylum law, is literally the legal monument that has been left behind by what we call 70 years later, the greatest generation. As I learned it in school, we went to World War II not just to protect our borders, not just to defend our interests, but to preserve our principles. Chief among them, that we do not stand idly by and allow people to be sent into a situation where they're going to be the victims of torture, persecution. I think that those laws were passed at a time when our nation was more freshly aware of the horrors of genocide, of mass killings of people because of who they are. And that goes to our identity as a nation and the things that make us most proud of being Americans. And I just hope that as we consider changing our law, for the first time that I can even fathom in our history, changing a law in order to make it less protective of human rights, in order to reduce due process, restrict access to counsel. I literally cannot think of another example in our nation's history where we have decided as a nation to change our character just to exclude a group of vulnerable children from accessing the justice that we hold so dear. So I believe that we must remember, we must look in the mirror as a nation as to who we are and who we want to be. As I say to people, it is expensive to be the beacon of hope. Do you know why it's so expensive to be the beacon of hope and liberty in the world? Because it is very much worth it.
Great response.
Jan?
I want to thank all of you so much for the work that your organizations do, as well as for your important testimony today. I'm wondering if you can answer the question that I wasn't going to press the children. They don't know why. Why was it so cold? I mean, why do all these kids say? I mean, it just seems, cold has been used as torture in the past. I mean, really, and it just makes no sense that they would, it seems, deliberately been held in really uncomfortable situations. Is that improved, do we know? And why was it? All the kids I talked to at the shelter mentioned the cold.
I would just say we use this same mentality actually in our prison system, and I think it's a way of Subduing is what we've been hearing from Border Patrol is how you can subdue the people that are being held.
So it was a deliberate strategy then?
Yeah. It's deliberate. And this is something that advocates have been pushing really hard with CBP for a while. And we have been hearing from the commissioner that they are looking at these issues, these policies, systematic policies that they have in place about keeping the holding cells that cold.
So they're still that cold?
They're still that cold. And they've been that cold for over 5 years or decades.
It's a very useful tactic, and it's a very useful thing to do because, the reason that they will give you, or that I've heard, is that they keep it at this cold temperature in order to prevent the spread of disease. And so it's a very useful tactic because it's not just torturous, as you describe, but it also helps to spread this idea that these people are disease spreading. It is almost treating them like cattle to treat them like this. But it's not just the children.
But is there any science behind keeping it at 72 or 74?
No hospital I've ever been in has been that cold.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think that is something we absolutely need to deal with. One other question. So Mayelli said that her trip was pretty good, comfortable. How are these children coming? We heard about the horrible on top of the car in Esperanza situation, but it seems that it varies significantly. So if you could describe the options.
Yeah, the children refer to kind, as you say, it's a whole host of ways that they come. Some come, the older ones, sometimes they come completely alone without adults, and it's really just some kids. And it's by foot, it's train, it's bus, and some of them are lucky that they have, relatively event, free journeys. But I think the more common is situations where they're being abused by their coyotes or someone who is in the group, particularly if you're a girl. And the vast majority of these girls who come are sexually assaulted along the journey.
The majority?
Yeah, that's what we've heard. Yeah, I don't have, we've heard different numbers, but I think we can all corroborate that it's the majority of the children, over 50% of the girls. But yet, more girls are coming than ever before. It's about 40% girls coming now as opposed to a year or so ago. So I think, again, that just underscores how desperate they are to get to the United States and away from what they're coming.
Do any of them come with an unrelated but protective adult? I'm just wondering how Mayelli. I didn't want to ask her. I didn't want to get into the.
Yeah, some do.
Yeah, some come with grandparents or like extended family members, cousins, older siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Under our current law, though, those children or those adult caregivers would be separated because they are not parents, and because in the past traffickers have used statements of saying that they are the uncle or the sister or brother or whatever of the child, and have used that as a ploy to try to traffic the children into the country for labor and sex trafficking.
Right.
So now the policy is to separate extended family members at Border Patrol stations.
So that makes the children qualify as unaccompanied alien UICs.
Right, because they do not have a parent or legal guardian available to them.
I think it's also important when people discuss the smugglers and the money paid to smugglers in order to bring children here. This is debt. This is not often cash. This is debt that the child is expected to work off upon arrival. So many of these children are, if they're not trafficked yet, they're rocking and rolling on that road to being trafficked here in the United States, where they are vulnerable with the people whom they are with, or the smugglers that they've paid who may have their families back home at the butt of a gun.
Thank you.
How do you have questions or comments?
Questions and comment. Adriana, I understand that the supplemental that's being proposed by the Republicans in the House is around $900 million. Around 60% of it, to 2/3 of the money, is dedicated to border security, and the other portion to the services to children. I understand that it's not free and clear money. We have to cut other places in the budget. And one of the areas we're cutting is State Department programs, which would assist these State Department, would assist these three countries for economic development. That makes no sense to me. Could you comment on that? And also, I've heard some reports, but I've not been able, a lot of Americans have searched for sources for the causes in articles. The journalists have not written a lot about it, and that's part of the problem, is that Americans are reluctant to call these young people refugees because they don't see a war. It's kind of a less visible sort of violence, less understandable violence to them, and they don't have a lot of independent journalistic information about any connection of these gangs. What is the relationship with, say, the deportations from our country of violent criminals back to these countries that have criminal justice systems that don't seem to be able to absorb them?
Before there's a response, we're under a little bit of, we have to turn this
room over.
We have to turn this room over at some point quickly. And so if there's one response, I would appreciate it.
Go ahead. Adriana, go ahead.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I think it's very important to recognize that unless we address the original factors that have driven these children to flee their communities and their homes, they're likely to attempt to return again. So I think it is very important in any supplemental that is approved that we address the root causes of the violence. I think there are very clear examples of things that have worked to reduce violence. As I mentioned, there are a number of community-level violence prevention programs that have been effective at reducing violence. Just to draw an example, Santa Tecla, which is a suburb of San Salvador, in 2003, the mayor at the time implemented a robust community-level violence program that brought together different sectors and managed to reduce the homicide level by 40%. So we have, very clear examples that have worked, and I think it's very important to address the root causes of the violence. To the second question, when we look at the nature of the Central American gangs, one of the factors that is important to take into account is that in the 90s, with some of the deportation policies of the U.S., many Central Americans, particularly from the Northern Triangle, that had joined gangs, MS-13, 18th Street gangs in California, brought that culture back to their home countries. These were, individuals, kids that did not speak the language, did not have any family. Given the lack of opportunities and the fact—
Did not speak the language, these people who were deported?
Many of them did not speak the language because they grew up actually in the U.S.
See, I don't think Americans really understand this connection. I really don't. There's not been a lot written about it. I know a lot of my constituents, when this first began to surface, were desperately searching around for information on the internet, and one even said, we can't find anything about this connection. Yeah.
Thank you, Adriana. Ms. Jackson-Lee, one question. I hope it's a yes or no.
I am sensitive. The chairman's responsibility is that we must be out of this room, but I felt it was just very important, Mr. Ryan, just very quickly, as you well know, the bill is going to put these children through the Border Patrol and then straight to a court, maybe in a minute of seven days. And let me also say to Congressman Tchaikovsky, I will tell you that the light that's been put on the Border Patrol agents, there are many who are caring and concerned, and the training is what they need, and the facilities is what they need. I think we're really going to make a difference. And the message will go about the heat. But would you just say what will happen when the 7-day time frame imposed for the immigration court screening and any particular challenges with dealing with children, what is going to happen as you see it as a lawyer? And thank all the witnesses very much for their testimony.
The children are absolutely going to be unprepared for the legal gauntlet that they're going to be pushed through. Many of them who are eligible to stay and who, with the proper preparation and counsel, would succeed in their claims, are going to be denied, and they're going to be shipped home to face the same violence that they fled, quite simply.
And we will not be a nation of mercy.
Not at all.
We have been known to be.
And it'll be remembered.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your kindness.
Thank you, and let me thank the panelists and those of us that are here. Mr. O'Rourke, representing the border community, has been particularly effective in Texas to try to provide some balance to this whole issue, and I want to appreciate that. Ms. Jackson-Lee, in her role on the committee, has been making sure that due process continues to be the core of what this law is. I want to thank you very much. And Mr. Connor made the point about the American people not getting it. Well, I think the American people are beginning to get it. That what's at stake here is not a simple political convenience where we expedite in order to provide either political coverage or exploit a situation for electoral purposes. That this is fundamentally about us as Americans, fundamentally about our way of life, our tradition, and our values. And so I want to appreciate you reminding us of that as a group and the people and whatever audience that we have. Thank you. And to the kids that were here today, I don't think no more powerful statement can be made about this issue than them. I think you need to put a face to the reality, and I was so glad they were here so that we don't talk about these children in abstract forms, and so that we don't continue to demonize them and marginalize them without them having a voice. And they had a voice today, and I thought it was very powerful. With that, let me conclude the meeting and thank all of you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Use the gavel, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.